You're listening to the 9 to Survive podcast, where we speak to the most inspiring entrepreneurs of Australia. I'm your host, Alex Whiteside, the CEO of EasyCompanies. Running your own business can be quite daunting and scary. We're here to show you how to face those fears and help you build your dream today. We listen to the innovators, the game changers, and the thought leaders who have built their startups from the ground up. Hear what makes them tick, how they've overcome their own failures, and be inspired to take your own leap of faith and ignite your passion for business. So on today's show, we have Steve Hoy. He's commonly known as the Points Whisperer, and he's running iFLYflat.com.au. He helps people maximize credit card points and travel first class and business more effectively using only credit card points. So I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And you're definitely what they call the Points Whisperer, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So everything you need to know about point hacking, I've been following you for quite some time. That's why we got you in. And I think that does mean a lot for businesses too, because businesses can be maximizing their reward points, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that they have in their sort of like arsenal or toolkit. They just don't know how to use them. And I think that's like the secret weapon of being in business, is the freedom to use all the toolkits that you have.
Yeah, and the awareness, isn't it? Like, you've got a business there earning a lot of revenue, and they don't realize they could be maximizing those points.
Yeah. And points is like a shortcut of travel. So why pay full price when you don't have to? And I think for business owners, that resonates really well, because the whole reason why people have a business is because they figured out a better way of doing something compared to someone else. Yeah,
that's really great. So, I mean, I think on this show we want to talk about, we really want to know your story and what got you into iFLYflat. Cool. So let's take it back, a track down memory lane, and let's start with, like, what is it that you wanted to do when you were younger? Like, did you have that entrepreneurial spirit, or?
I think I was always a little bit different. I think I wasn't one of those kids where I knew what I wanted to do. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I do remember there was one defining moment, which I just finished my HSC, and I got my TR, and I was still deciding actually between, should I do Bachelor of Psychology or Bachelor of Commerce? So all my friends were doing Bachelor of Commerce, and I thought psychology is really interesting. So how I actually decided eventually was I looked at these things called salary guides for a profession. So I looked at the Bachelor of Psychology. That was paying less than $20,000.
Really?
Nah, sorry psychology. So I went into commerce, and that's
so you followed the money when you were younger, right? Is that?
Well, I followed the money because I thought, well, why? Well, if I have money,
true.
I can do something else with it.
Yeah. So were you running businesses when you were younger, or did you ever kind of have that hobby passion or anything?
Not businesses. I'm always improving things. So my dad was pretty good at just fixing stuff. And I guess we come from a sort of Chinese family. You don't want to waste money, so you're always fixing stuff. So he was super handy, and I took some of those traits of being handy. So fixing things, always improving things. I never liked anything that was just left. Like, if something could be improved in a better way of doing things, that will save time and.
Yeah, so you'd look at something and see that you can do better. Like you can optimize it or automate it or make it more efficient.
Yeah, that's right. Or cut it out if it didn't need to be done. Yeah. So
that's the entrepreneurial spirit in itself, right? You look at a problem and you go, I can make this better. And I mean, you end up building a business out of it in the end, if that's the journey you take.
I always ask, something that irks me is when something doesn't work right, you think, number one I ask is, who designed this? Like I say, a tap, right? Who designed this? But I don't really mind who designed it. I thought, who bought it? Because you can design really rubbish, but it's the guy's job to buy rubbish.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So were you innovating anything before you were running iFLYflat? Were you running any businesses or?
I had one business actually when I was so I worked at Macquarie Bank for 11 years. One of the businesses I started then was called SOS Steve, and what that was, it was an advice business about home electronics.
Oh, nice.
So flat screens were just coming out, and SD HD was just making the transition. So that was a business to provide advice on what is the right type of home electronics you should buy without overbuying specs. So we had customers that wanted a HD set, but I was asking them, what are you going to watch? Oh, we're just going to watch like cartoons and stuff. And so, well, that's all SD content. Why would you buy a HD set for SD content? So that was the start of my advice sort of journey.
They used to have something like that at Dick Smith, because I remember working there. It was like the help desk or the know-how. They'll come to your house and kind of like tell you what you need at the end, right?
And I was trying to separate the marketing hype from your actual use.
What you actually need.
And there's no need to overpay for over-spec equipment that you're not touching.
Well, that's good. And I think that's a... so, like, what got you into... I mean, you've built iFLYflat, which is pretty now renowned for, frequent flyer and redeeming points, if you don't know how. Did you have a passion for flying before you built this business?
I had my first flight when I was working, actually. So we were a family that never used to really travel. So my dad still has the same perceptions of why would you waste money and go there? Just watch it on TV.
That's a good point. Yeah, I see that.
So we never traveled that much. So I only had my first flight when I was sort of working, and then I guess you catch the bug, because the whole thing about travel is you start to have experiences that you can't get at home. So even though you might watch something on TV, people might tell you, until you're actually immersed in that space, it's a space of learning. You learn how to handle yourself. You learn the culture, the people. So that's what caught me. The fact that you have to be there.
And the smells really and all that stuff that you don't see on TV, right?
The uncertainty. You know, the magic of travel is that you get there, you don't know how you got there, but you really enjoy the experience.
And what can go wrong, which is always fun, the challenges that you have to face, right?
But what goes wrong just becomes a funny story.
It does,
so it never goes bad.
So you found your passion of flying just recently, was it, when you were working back?
Yeah, probably about 20 years ago type thing, in terms of passion for travel.
Yeah. And were you flying in the business and first cabins back then, or were you kind of, it was all for...
Well, I guess when I was paying for it, it was all economy, and I only ever flew my first business class flight when I was going to work in India. So during my 11-year career at Macro, I was a finance accountant, and we built a team in New Delhi, and that's when Macro flew us business class to New Delhi.
Yeah.
And I remember that first trip where they'll say, "Welcome on board, Mr. Hoy. Can I take your jacket? What would you like to drink?" And I thought, what is this?
Yeah, it's a different world, isn't it?
It's a completely different world. And then that was when I thought, this is the way to travel. If you got to travel, like this is.
That's how traveling used to be before everything became low-cost carriers and chase the bottom line, right? It used to be what business is today. Flying was a profound experience.
Yeah, and so now they pack everyone in because obviously the aircraft can contain more people. So, previously economy was probably like a 2-3-2 seating configuration. Now I've even heard of like 4-4-4. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's packed.
Completely different world. Yeah,
that's not fun having to get over 3 people.
No, that's right. That's right.
So how did this idea come about then? So you've found a passion for flying, and how did you get to iFLYflat? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, I guess the idea came from, in Macquarie, they are very entrepreneurial group of people. So the company's always known about finding value when other people can't see it. So I guess that rubs off on you, because Macquarie used to make loads of money on toll roads and things like finding a gap that no one else can see. So how I came about it was through all the flying to India for my job. I was collecting all these points. My colleagues were also flying, but they were not collecting the points. So soon it dawned on me that these points actually have a lot of value that it required no effort from me to earn these points, because they were just,
it wasn't even your spend, was it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wow, these points have a lot of value, but no one knew what to do with them. And that's the moment it dawned on me where if someone was able to show someone how to save money on flights, that's really good value. And that's how the business really kicked off.
So you saw yourself as somewhat of becoming an expert in that space, but not only just that, helping people redeem those points. Because most people just buy gift cards and stuff like that, right? Or headphones, Bose headphones, or just these little.
I see that's a big waste, because being an accountant in my head, finance numbers, you're always trying to get maximum value. So if you can have points, and the points can get you something that's worth a lot or not very much, like, why wouldn't you aim to get the maximum value from that? So when people redeem for gift vouchers, well, cool, you have a gift voucher, but what they're missing out is the fact that they could have traveled somewhere and had an amazing experience for the same number of points.
Like, what's the difference? Are we talking, like, if you were to get, say, just 100,000 frequent flyer points or something for brief experience, I think that's about $1,000 gift card or something, is it? Would you say? Or
I'll say probably only $500.
$500 gift card. Wow.
So one Qantas point's worth only about half a cent. But one Qantas point when you fly business class is worth about 3.5 cents. So you get 7 times more value. So what I tell people now is your $100 gift card is actually costing you $700 in flights. Just to put that in a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. If you can redeem a gift card for $500, and that's what it's worth in cash, you might as well fly and fly in business for $500 if you want to think of it in that way in accounting terms, right? At least you're in a better cabin, and rather than paying for an economy ticket, you now get business. So,
but it's really interesting. Sort of what I found in Australians, they're not really fancy people, like generalisation. A lot of people do come to me and say, well, I don't want to fly business class in case I don't want to go back. And that actually stops people from flying business class, because they don't want to experience something better, which I find completely irrational, but it happens.
It's true. Once you've been flying, because I mean, I've been doing the point game for a while, and once you start getting into first and business, it's definitely hard to then go back into economy. It's not.
But why will you not experience it? Just for
you're
the
right.
sheer,
Yeah.
For that you're going to miss that.
And I think that's it. You'll never know any different. And that's the truth. Once you're out of points and that's it, well, then that's it. You had fun, right?
Yeah. So I tend to think that, well, once you experience business, once you experience first and you know what there is, you would sort of set your subconscious mind to make it work for you. So you either work harder or you find more ways to solve that problem. So you always fly first class going forward.
Setting up credit cards or all sorts of different things, right?
Like your mind would just be finding ways to solve that problem for you. Yeah. But if you've never been first, then you never want to go first, and you just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah,
it's good. So I mean, that gives us a good overview of like how you got into the business, and what would you say some of the, like, that first step of like, where were you when you decided that you're going to run a business, and what was that decision like? Like, were there any fears that you had to overcome or things like that?
So my story is a bit unique. So I worked at 11 years at Macquarie, and actually I put my hand up for redundancy. So that was just after the GFC, and they're looking at reducing their team. So I actually scored a voluntary redundancy, and that enabled me to finish my job. So I didn't even have to leave my job in a way. In a way, I left it by getting it. Yeah. So I was one of the lucky ones that scored and left with a smile on my face. Then I took 6 months off, and I then used those points to fly pretty much around the world, going to Vegas, going to the London Olympics, going to Tour de France, going to Champagne region. And that's when I realized, wow, if you had points, you could fly forever.
And you just realize so many people are unutilized in that space.
Yeah, so many people are
so then the idea to obviously go into the business, were there any fears that you had to face, like in terms of running your own business, or was it all quite...
Well, I didn't really know what I was getting into, really. So you sort of think, you're moving from salary employment, you're moving to your own business. When I drew up plans in a cafe yonks ago, we were going to charge people $50 per booking. But heaps of people are going to join. So I think back then, because you don't know how hard it is to get a customer, you think your product's so awesome that people are just going to be knocking down your door. But the fact is, even though your product's so awesome, people still need to understand what you do. And then that's where the challenge of marketing comes in. Because if your message is not clear, they don't know what they're buying, and they won't buy.
Well, I guess that's what they say when they say like ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the execution that makes the difference, right? Like we can all pull up an awesome idea, and I've heard many of them, and then it's like, it sounds great in theory, but try to sell it to me. Tell me when someone's purchased that product that you want to build, or that tool, or that business, because when you purchase it, that's when the value exchange happens, right?
Yeah.
And that's when the idea is real.
It also, when someone's purchased it, that's what you've always hoped to do, but then you feel, oh, now I have to deliver.
Yeah.
So that's actually an even higher level, because now someone's paid me money. Now I've got a promise to fulfill. So even though you've always wanted them to buy it, now they've done it.
It's another fear, isn't it? It's now the fear of like you've faced that. I remember what the first customer was like. It was like, this is awesome. Like I've finally managed to capture. Like we launched and we had customers the first day because of Google Ads at EasyCompanies. But that first customer was like, okay, I've got them across the line, and now it's like, whoa, now we actually need to like do all this stuff, and it's like now they expect this service delivery.
Yeah,
it's a different fear that kicks in.
Yeah, so I think that's the fear. I didn't really know what I was getting into, but as we built the business, as we grew, that's the stuff that I discovered. I think there's a mental journey you have to go through that I haven't read about in books, or no one has really talked about, is this massive expectation gap between what you think will happen to what actually happens.
Yeah.
And there's always this bit that you have to come and check with yourself. Is this going the right way? What will happen if it doesn't? So you're always moving between like excitement to fear to steady excitement, fear, and it never stops.
It's the roller coaster, right? I remember actually thinking, like 2 years in, you see these. I remember actually seeing this graph on Sydney Startups, the Facebook group, and it's just a roller coaster. It's like everything's going phenomenally well.
Yep.
Everything is like, it's just the wheels are falling off, and then everything's fine. It's like that roller coaster of a startup, right?
Yeah. And the magic is finding ways to deal with that.
Yeah.
So therefore, celebrate your highs, maybe even celebrate your lows.
Acknowledge the lows.
Yeah. Because if you don't have highs and lows, then really you got really boring, because it's just steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it. You get. I think lows are where you grow out of, right? Is that? Yeah. I mean that's a good it's a good segue into like what are the biggest challenges been for building iFLYflat?
Yeah. For me, I'll say in one way, we've been pretty lucky with getting lots of media exposure, lots of PR, which I think, unlike any company, like we've got the most PR apart from maybe Uber or something like that, where we just get lots of inbound interest. And the reason for that is ultimately Australians, our target market, they love to travel.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You have people who either work for travel or their passions are. You ask anyone their passion, is always going to be food, travel,
the
beach, or whatever.
Next holiday.
Yeah, it's always travel, right? So because travel is such a massive bit in our psyche, everyone wants to read about travel. So we get lots of media from that side. I think the biggest challenge is just clarity of the message. You sort of have this thing like an expert's curse, where you know so much about your business, and obviously you're sold on it and you believe you can help people. How do you explain it to others so others can feel your enthusiasm, your passion? How do you help people along the journey, because they come from all different levels of knowledge? So just say you're at level 10 and they are at level 1. Unless you adjust your message, they don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you don't know why they don't understand. So you have a completely missed frequency.
Do you mean because you're speaking at such a you're still kind of talking that point hacker lingo, and then your customers are kind of like, yeah, but I just want to fly business or first or overseas. Is that the gap that you're talking about? With
also, they have pre-existing knowledge that they believe to be true, but you don't believe to be true. So you're also trying to change their belief as well. So, for example, we would say frequent flyer points. Nowadays we actually talk about credit card points, because that's where we would normally working. But whenever we say frequent flyer points, people come about their upgrade story, which is like completely the wrong angle, because that's what they know, which is super cool, which is fine. But actually, that's not how to play the game.
Yeah.
So you got a mismatch. So now we're learning to figure out how much they know and then bring our language down and then educate them up to be more advanced.
To what you need, yeah. So what do you mean by that in terms of upgrade? Do you mean most people are coming into you helping them get that upgrade versus an outright redemption of...
Yeah, so outright redemptions is not very popular. So most people will use their points on the upgrade. I would say if you survey people, say in this building, 90% of people will use their points on the upgrade because they believe that's either the best value way or the only way to use their points. So the people that use points for full redemption is only a really small portion. So when you talk about using points, straight away they'll be thinking upgrade. And my job to say, no, don't think about upgrade. Because upgrades changed. Upgrade used to be, I'll upgrade and you got a seat. But these days, it's upgrade. It's purely a request.
Yeah.
All you've done is made a request.
There's no guarantee, right? That's the thing with the, like, if you're doing an upgrade, it's a possibility.
Possibilities. A lot of
redemption is, I want to fly business, otherwise I'm not going. But that's an interesting philosophy.
Yeah, so the market has changed, but people don't know that. So therefore, my job is to realize where the market is and educate up. And you're not getting
hit with seasonal pricing when you're just doing a redemption, are you? Because you're just
flat
outright.
Price. Yeah.
That's good. So your challenge has been education, like finding the right customers that are aligned with where you're heading and making sure it's not just, I want to get an upgrade, can you help me?
Yeah, that's right. And also finding them where we can help them. So also it's a lot of greenfield opportunity because a lot of people are not even playing the points game at all, and we help them along the journey. So number one, you just got to find out if they have the capacity to earn points, and secondly, if they want to travel. You sort of need both. If you have no capacity to earn points, then you can want to travel you want, but you cannot pay for it. But if you have the capacity but you don't want to travel, then we're helping you get something that you don't want. So you've got to make sure that we match.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so you said before you went into a success with media and getting out there. I'm sure there's something I ever want to know myself. Like, how do you go about doing a PR campaign, or how do you go about getting into media? Because I'm sure it's something that a lot of us startup founders, including yourself, want to get more of, like more exposure and get out there and be in Sydney Morning Herald and things like that, right?
Yep. I guess from my experience, because they've all been inbound, if I unpack that a bit more, how did I get on their radars? I think through LinkedIn. So I knew I missed the Instagram train. So I thought, I'll work hard on LinkedIn. So I built LinkedIn to 30,000 connections, which is the maximum.
How did you get there? Did you add everyone, or they add you? Or?
Years ago, there was an opportunity to just add anyone, and they'll either accept or not. And I think just like Instagram, those opportunities have gone.
They're closing.
Where you can't just add anyone these days. So I think through that, and then just through the constant sharing of points and travel-related news, people start recognizing the name. And then also, the thing about media I've found in my experience is once you've been on one or two, other media people read other media, and so you get this sort of snowball effect. So your first two, or say your first 5 media things that
opportunities
you do will then generate your future 50.
Yeah, so it's getting in there. Is that because, are they seeing that there's trust in that because you've got your message out with other outlets? So if it's working for them, it must be able to work for me, right? Or
maybe, or that they've seen you perform. So obviously, if you've been on TV, they've seen you, so they go, well, this guy doesn't freak out. So it's safe to have him on my show because nothing's going to happen. And then they
can put a face to the name
of that. And then I think other things, maybe they just read news. So reporters read news. So if they see you in the news, that's how you become on their radar or something.
So it's getting in there.
You got to get in there first.
Message. And so then, how did you get in there? So you said through LinkedIn, you reached out. Were you running a bit of a campaign, like stories or?
I'm a bad salesperson, so we hardly do any outreach. It's all about inbound. So if you ask, I'll answer. That's sort of like my technique. So
how did you get, like, if I'm a agency, how did you get there to be asked, if that makes sense? Like, is it really...
I don't have an answer for that one, because we've never been in a scenario where we really asked people. And that's the same for our business now. We don't really do that much outreaching.
They've just come to
inbound,
you. And that's obviously easier. If you've got PR reaching out to you, that's desirable because you've got the upper hand. Yeah,
but I guess in attempt to answer that question, because I think it'd be very useful for your listeners, is how will you get PR? I think you just got to have something interesting. So people are always looking for content, and the idea about content is they only write something if they believe their readers want to read. So you have to have something for them to write about, and I think that's the trick. So if you run a business and you say your business, EasyCompanies creating businesses, registration, on the surface not that super exciting.
No,
but but doing podcasts like this and doing stories, then you can start being more interesting, and then that's how you start getting featured, because there's a reason to write.
I think that actually goes back to your point we started off, where we talked about the idea and execution gap. It's kind of like you believe your story is the best story in the world, and that's good. You need that vision, right? But then you need to remember that not everyone believes that either. So you kind of, if I just write to Sydney Morning Herald saying EasyCompanies is the best platform ever created, they're like, cool. Yeah. How do we put that in the paper?
Yeah. So, but if you did some stunt or you did something, there's a reason. So that's why.
So it's the angle you need to find.
You got to give them a reason to write about you, and a reason for their readers to read about you. Because even if they write it, no one reads it, they're not going to write about you again.
That's it. There's low engagement, and then they're just not interested. Yeah. So it's really coming up with a compelling story that isn't just the business pitch, right? Or even if it is the business pitch, it's something unique that's being done. Or if you've raised money, obviously everyone wants to talk about that. Yeah,
sometimes only in some publications though, not all publications. But if you're doing something unique, or even to think about stunts or guerrilla marketing in a way, so
Koala's good at this, right? I don't know how they do it, but they do an incredible job of being a bit cheeky.
That's right, yeah. And I think in the Australian market, people like cheekiness. People don't like stale big brands. And the way I see it is, as a small company, you have, in a way, a pass to be cheeky. So once you become a big company, there's things you can't do because you should know better. But if you're a small company, there's all these things that you can do that people might turn a blind eye to because you're just small, and they'll let you go because you're just trying to grow your business, you're just trying to hustle. So in a way, you get this pass that the big companies just cannot do. So you might as well take advantage of that pass and apologize for doing wrong, then ask for permission. Yeah, and you can come up with lots of creative ideas that way.
Yeah, it's nice. So you'd say that the PR angle has really worked for your business. Like, you're not taking a traditional marketing approach, you're going the getting out there into the papers, into the media. Is that where your customers are? Have you found?
Our customers are probably on LinkedIn, word of mouth. Sometimes we ask where our customers come from, and they don't even know how they found us, because we sort of everywhere, which means that piece is working.
Well, they say it takes seven attempts to reach someone before they convert, right? So you might have been on TV, then in the newspaper, and then LinkedIn. Yeah.
And then our industry is not something that they need to take action straight away, because they might know that we book flights, but they're not flying. So they're not going to make contact now. They'll make contact later.
Hard. Yeah.
And by that time, they might forget. So it's hard, in a way, to do that. But I've always thought about doing things differently, and I guess this method of using PR, which just really by chance and by luck we get, and doing sort of inbound, it's a little bit different. We've never done any SEO related stuff.
Never.
Our blogs are very boring. That's why we do video. I do video blogs now because I don't like to write long paragraphs.
Well, you got to do what works for you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're obviously more confident on camera and getting your message out there, but other listeners here might be like,
I just find it easier. We can do that. Say this podcast, I can record a video. It takes 10-20 minutes of my time, and it's done. it might not be perfect. It's done, it's out there, because the core message has been communicated. But if I was going to write the same article, it would take me hours.
Yeah.
I just, even if I'm finished, I still wouldn't be happy with the content I've written.
Yeah.
And therefore that means there'll be a week before that gets out.
Yeah, and that's something that I see, like Point Hacks or something like that. Those websites do the articles well, but then they don't have video. So it's like you just got to find your niche, right?
Yeah, I think you just find what's comfortable. So therefore, I'm more of a subscriber to better done than perfect, because actually, want to share. I just somehow saw this thing for Gary Vee about.
I was going to say Gary Vee.
Done and not perfect, because the whole he's saying that what's perfect, let your audience decide what's perfect, because if you decide what's perfect, you may never ship.
It's so true, because I mean we've been doing live streams on Facebook now, and I put that stuff out there, and I've been doing stuff on my own Instagram, and I get it out there, and in my head there's all that kind of like negative noise, and it's like but then you put it out there, and then 3 days later suddenly people just start popping up like, that's amazing, like good on you. So if you let your perfectionism stop you from publishing that video, then it's not out there. Let people judge you, let the audience judge as much as they want. At least you get feedback then. Yeah,
you get feedback.
If they're like, this was crap, you say, why was it crap? What could I do better? Can you tell me? You know? Yeah,
that's right. So therefore that means for your 10th one, for your 50th one, by the time you've done your 100th one, you will be way more perfect. But if you never got started, you can't learn without starting.
And Gary Vee talks a lot about that, Gary Vaynerchuk. Go back and watch his first episode, the Wine Library TV, episode 1. It's so like low quality, and the good thing is you can type in episode 1001, which is like 4 years after, and he's got so much more personality and he's so much more himself. And that just shows you got to start somewhere.
You got to do it. There's no other way to deliver, I guess, mastering that thing until you do it. Because otherwise, if you're still waiting, he'll still look like that. Maybe a little bit more polished, but not that polished. Yeah,
that's good. So what do you do to keep grounded? Like, are you doing anything? Do you follow mindfulness, or do you like in terms of your daily routine? Do you have a routine for success? Because that's obviously a very common thing these days. People are talking about that, like a daily routine.
I think that's something I still need lots of improvement in. So I've tried meditation a few times, and I subscribe to Headspace, which I continue to pay for, but never actually use the app. I think that's really common. But I do have personal training twice a week now, which I started last November, which my wife arranged for me, because otherwise I probably would never do it. So we do a lot of weights, and that means that it's helped me realize, I guess, mentally that your body, bit by bit, you can train it to be better and stronger. So I really enjoy the personal training, and I'm still trying to do maybe one run a week type thing.
Just exercise works. A
bit of exercise. But in terms of mindfulness, I tend not to jam pack my calendars as much as I can. I try to create gaps, because I don't like to run from meeting to meeting. But obviously sometimes you have to. Yesterday was a busy day, but I try to have really lots of empty space in my calendar, just to think about the business, think about the people, customers, and then maybe even just to think about, if an opportunity presents. So for example, we always do some April Fool's thing, and this last year I think we had the air card, in the fake credit card.
That I actually want that.
Yeah, some people actually try to apply.
Can find that on your website, right? Is it still up? I'm not sure.
Yeah, but down.
I was actually saying to people, like, can we have this card? I think the biggest turning point was the number of points you earn. Yeah, because obviously.
Yeah, because Amex is just reducing their points, so it's like a bit of fun. And we didn't come up with that idea till like maybe 2 weeks before, and then it's like, hey Lockie, which is my right hand man in Brisbane, let's put this together. Don't spend too much time on it. This is the basic idea. Just put it together and let's roll it out. And we only got that finished the day before. So it's just funky ideas, fast execution, not spend too much time on it. Because you don't even know if it works.
Were you testing a product there? Are we expecting something soon, or were you just doing it for fun?
I think it's doing it for fun, but also in a way trying to send a message to the credit card company and the airlines that these are some of the features that you could easily put in your card, but why not?
Well, was it Qantas the other day that just said 30% of spend in Australia comes from a Qantas branded credit card?
That's huge.
That's a phenomenal statistic.
Yeah. And when they introduced the titanium credit card, I thought for that fee they're going to charge, there's more features you can put in that will make people really happy. But why do you choose not to? And like for me, I read lots of credit card news from around the world. A lot of these features are already in other people's credit cards.
What do you think the market is in terms of the number of like point hackers, or I mean we call it that, but is there a big market in Australia for that? Like if you were to launch a point hacker based credit card or even business point hacker credit card, do you see opportunity in the market for that?
I think it's a points hacker market. Australia, just like its population, is quite small. You have to launch something that's more of a common,
more broad
for businesses.
But appeals to frequent flyers, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I guess you can sort of say everyone's a frequent flyer, but businesses are busy, so you're not going to be. You just want a card to say, this is the card for you. Just get it, forget it, and get on with running your business. Yeah, well, that'd be interesting to see if you ever get that off the ground, or if that was just an April Fool's. Yeah, well, I love to consult to some credit card companies so that at least they can. Yeah, I'm very commercial as well, so I'm not going to want something that cannot be delivered. But there's a lot of things that can be delivered. But why do you choose not to? That's why I'm always intrigued. But I think that April Fool's joke is a perfect example of marketing done right, because it cuts through the noise. Like you actually went. The description of this was you actually put it on a bus stop. You put it on a bus stop and you embedded the image, obviously photoshopped or something, right? Yeah, but it looks so real, and that's the kind of angle that Koala take as well. They're out there doing that. Yeah, we've got some more ideas around that. We don't want to deceive people to think we want it to be clearly a Photoshop, so we're not trying to trick people. Yeah, but just really showing us the cleverness of the idea. It's just still cool anyway. Yeah. So you missed out on the election. You should have seen. Was it Jimmy Brings? It was like vote one Jimmy Brings. I saw that. That was really cool. We did one actually. We squeezed one out. Did you? Just before election day, saying vote one freaking flyer party. Oh, that's right. You did. Free upgrades. Yeah. If we win. Yeah. And I think that's it. That goes back to that point. You need to be cheeky in marketing, because there's so much content out there now online. If you're not cutting through the noise. I think humour is the number one. It's sort of an untapped. Like Virgin's very good with humour. So if you see all their advertising campaigns, Australia, their advertising agency CHE Proximity are very good with. So if you take the cheekiness from them but do it your way, I think it cuts through very well. That's it. I mean, Qantas are good in their brand structure. They have a phenomenal colour set, and everything just works so consistently. I could look at a Facebook post without all the branding and just know it's Qantas somewhere. But they're not cheeky. They're much more of a corporate brand. They are. But they do well at branding, for sure. Or they masters that PR. Yeah. They are. That any announcement, it will be like, hey, we changed toilet paper. Oh my God, the whole world's reporting on it. Yeah, that's it. They're good at that. So now, I mean, anyone out there looking to start a business, they're on the edge. They're kind of thinking about, taking the leap of faith into, quitting their job and starting a business. What advice would you give them? Yeah, I'll say there's probably two parts. You don't have to quit your job these days and go full in. You need to test. So just like the startup principles, MPV, you have an idea. You believe it's super idea, but the market doesn't believe it yet. So I wouldn't quit your job yet. Just go halfway in, a quarter in. Test it, sell it. Tell your friends, tell your family, but actually beyond them, because they're either going to support you or they'll be like, what is this? But you got to go out to the public, as in strangers, and ask them, sell them. And if you start getting traction, test the idea by people, and improve, test and improve, up to the point where you now believe, I think I've got a real thing here, or I need more time, then quit. Because if you quit too early, your really brilliant idea might actually be really rubbish. Because you're so pressured to perform, right? That's right. Yeah. And don't go to your family for advice sometimes, because they're going to tell you what they want you to... It's hard to tell your friends don't do this sometimes, or your family. Well, your family's not your target market. Yeah. So you've got to go to your target market. So depending on what you're trying to sell, is your family I used,
They're
yeah,
they're gonna say do it because they're your family, but they don't know if that product's right. Like if I went to my dad and tried
Yeah.
to sell iFLYflat, he'd be
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, like go do it, but
that's
you know,
right. So
that's
you
it.
have to. I reckon there's nothing better than going out on a street and asking complete strangers who don't know you and who don't care about you, and then you can test your pitch, or maybe go into networking functions, test the pitch. So therefore, for me, I feel like if they don't understand what you're trying to sell, you have to keep improving.
Yeah. So did you run this model past people like when you started? Were you going out and finding an audience?
Yeah. So I was going to a lot of BNI networking events. So I was going as a visitor or substituting for some of the members when they were away. And in that model, you meet every morning or weekly in the morning, and you have to pitch your line. I think 5 seconds. So you only got really a tagline, and I kept making iterations of that, because I'll say something and people wouldn't understand. Okay, well, might have to tweak it a bit. So you got a lot of iterations, and only when I feel people understand what you're trying to sell would they start thinking about buying. But if they're still completely confused, it's just going to frustrate them.
That's a good way actually. You go out and you pitch the idea, and then you just see, then you know the angle to take, right?
Yeah, because they ask you questions.
Because
what do you mean by that? It's like, I thought I just told you what I mean, but actually clearly you haven't got the message through.
Because no one knows if you're actually running this business or not. If you're just talking at a networking event, you say this is what I do, and then they're like, oh, but how did? Yeah, that's a good.
That's right. It's a completely test, pretty much risk free. Obviously, it takes a bit of time, but at least you're not quitting your job to do it. Or the other thing is, like, some people are quitting their jobs because they just don't like their job so much. But just because you start a business, it doesn't mean it gets any better.
Yeah, I think it can go both ways, because sometimes quitting your job, I mean, you're right in that it's going to put a lot of pressure on and a lot of challenge, but it does definitely propel you into getting something done. Like, the thing is, when you're in your job, it's always that side hustle at night, and you feel tired and you don't like, which you were lucky in your case, you were able to have both, which is unique. So
very unique. Yeah, but unless you can get it up and running, like, for example, if you have it as a side hustle, you do it at night time, and you start getting bored of it, that's a good sign that it's not going to last.
True. Yeah.
So that's a good test.
Yeah, that's great. Well, look, it's been great having you on the show, Steve.
My pleasure.
Yeah, look forward to seeing where the future of iFLYflat goes, and definitely an advocate myself of this space. So
yeah, I just think that if we can help people travel more because the cost has been slashed and the discomfort has been slashed, then I think the whole world would just be a better place, because more people will meet more people and just become a better society.
That's good. Well, thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Also, if you haven't already, check out our YouTube channel. It's available under the EasyCompanies account, and there'll be a 9 to Survive playlist. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and look forward to seeing you next time.